Welcome to our 90th episode of Fireside Chats with Jesse. I am joined today by Jacob Fahl, Vice President of Funding and Portfolio Services, and hopefully I don't get this wrong, Mitsubishi HC Capital America.
It's a mouthful. Yep, thanks, Jesse. It's quite something, but you got it right. It's MHCCNA if you want to scale it down a little bit.
I didn't realize that was an option. Otherwise, I would have messed up that as well.
It's difficult. Or Mitsubishi or whatever you want from the different name changes. But
well, now that's in my head. It's going to come out at some point and accidentally. But I appreciate you taking some time today, Jacob, to spend some time with me here. And do you mind just kind of introducing yourself, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So Jacob Fahl, like Jesse said, I've been in the equipment finance industry for close to 20 years. Cut my teeth with the old Manifest Funding Group. Still here in Marshall, Minnesota, the mecca of equipment finance. I want to say it's close to Orange County, California, some of the other hot spots. But Marshall, Minnesota is a large town of 15,000 people, and about half of us do equipment finance. So cool little area out in the middle of nowhere. But for us, Mitsubishi HC Capital America, we do a lot of different various financing. I'm in our based out of our Minnesota group. We do vendor financing and then funding and portfolio services. It's a little bit of third party broker lessor type of financing. We do a little selling as well with some of our vendor deals. So that's pretty cool. And then our headquarters, US, are in Connecticut, and we have various satellite offices doing some asset-based lending, some truck financing out of Texas, and then we have another kind of sister company up in Canada. And then we're interrelated to a couple other entities within the US, ANGS being one of them, you know them, and then Mitsubishi HC Capital USA, that's another one that's in California. So kind of one big happy family, a grandchild of the big Mitsubishi over in Japan and everything, but a very cool group of people to work with, independent mindset, very entrepreneurial, do a lot of various things. Our group, especially in Minnesota, we do a lot of vendor business, a lot of program business. So we do programs. We don't do a lot of one-off type of deals, but we like working with, really good people and really interesting products and stuff. So that's kind of us in a nutshell.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that. And what's interesting is you were comparing Marshall to like Southern California, and I'm like, you're like, yeah, we're similar, and I'm like, dude, you're in Canada basically. Oscar from Assurant, when I was still at OSG, so that must have been like 2008, 2009. We were up there for an IDS user group, and he goes, hey, do you want to take a run to Marshall? And I'm like, where are we going? And like every 15 minutes I was like, that kid, are we there yet? Like, where are we going?
How many small towns and where are you taking me?
Where are we going? And all of a sudden we pull in and there's this big flag, and I'm like, American flag, and I'm like, so this is the home of swans? Like this is it? Okay.
Swans, yeah, it's where everything came from. Ice cream to equipment finance. What could be better?
Not gonna lie, when I see the swan strut going around this neighborhood, it makes me think of Marshall, Minnesota. So
it does. I actually grew up in Seattle, Washington. So the first 10 years of my life, I was in Seattle, and we'd have the Schwann's man coming by, every other day. I'd eat buckets of ice cream as a kid, and little did I know that I'd end up there one day.
And twice baked potatoes or whatever time, it's like that's the go-to, man. That's the go-to.
Yeah.
And then you get older and you actually start realizing the information and what goes in these things, and you're just like, oh, maybe that's why,
that's why the physique, frozen foods, it's great technology, but a little bit of technology.
Anytime I walk to a restaurant, man, I see the calories on a menu, I'm like, thank you for ruining my life. I'm still gonna get it. Maybe not all.
Tastes good. It's really hard of doing what's right versus doing what tastes good and feels good.
As long as they keep them off the menu at 1 a.m. when I'm in a hotel, because at that point there, I
Yep.
just really just don't care. Like,
Yep.
just,
Yep. Willpower is out the window. It's too hard. I hear you.
so in typical Jacob fashion, I sent over this outline of like just 4 or 5 questions, and you're just like, yeah, let's talk about something else. So
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna kind of spin this one in a different direction here today. I would like to start off with kind of like the ELFA and ETAC and kind of what that has meant to your career in equipment finance, if you don't mind. And then we'll just kind of
Yeah.
open this up to some back and forth in regards to younger professionals in the space. I don't know if I consider myself younger. I have a lot of gray hair. I'm still only 40. So I still think I'm on
that's all
that
right.
line. So we can
Yeah.
talk about some of the other stuff too.
You know, it's hard when you've been around for a while, right? And you've been in the industry and you kind of feel like a veteran, a grizzled veteran at that, but you're only 40 years old, and that's pretty darn young. I'm a shade older than you. I'm 42, but we're maybe still a millennial, but maybe not. And give or
Well, I
take.
don't know. Like, I was at the executive table, and there's a guy up there, and he was like, "What are you?" And I'm like, "I'm definitely not a Gen Xer." Like the ones
No.
just
Nope.
before, and you see everyone raise their hand, and it's like, "No, are you a millennial?"
Nope.
I'm like, "Oh, well, me."
Yep. Yep. I don't qualify myself as a millennial. You probably don't either. I'm just an independent, and I'm a resistor to most things. So I don't buy new technology real fast. I don't buy new cars real fast. I'm not on social media. I could care less because that's not who I am. And to your point about, you send me over a list of questions to go through, and I'm less interested on just running off a script, right? I'd rather talk about something important or something that's meaningful to our industry. And speaking of the ELFA and ETAC, and you know, the folks that started ETAC, I don't know, probably a decade or so ago when they started having those conversations, they could see the writing on the wall that industry, our people in equipment finance, were getting older, and the generations that are coming up are not enough, right? So that continuous or succession planning of the industry needed to happen. So a really intelligent and smart move to say, hey, how can we start this conversation and start the ball rolling and get younger people more involved. And it's been a blessing to the industry, to the companies, and hats off to the ELFA for promoting it, for giving us some of the tools and resources to go out there and talk to colleges and universities and get in front of people, have things like emergence, lead other leaders towards, hey, talk to your employees, talk to the younger generations, bring them along to some of these funding conferences and roundtables, and just to get them closer to what's going on. Because if you're leading and you're leading in just with other leaders and not bringing other people behind you, you're doing a disservice to others and yourself and your company, because you won't survive.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I've been fortunate where I've always been on the business development side pretty much my entire career. So even when I got in at 23, like, I was in charge of a new vertical. So I was afforded the ability to go to the ELFA annual, to go to whatever conference, I
Nice.
wanted to. And that's not, unfortunately, everyone can't do that.
No, but so important and what I talk to a lot of my folks on my team with, of find a way to get outside of your cubicle, because we do things one way, right? And we might do it really, really well, but it pays you to network and learn from other people and just see what else is out there. What's the broader industry? What do other people do? Because at least from my perspective, I'm less competitive with, they can do their own thing. I want to do and be really good at what I do. So I'm less less territorial. I want to meet interesting people. I want to have chats like this so I can learn a little bit more about what's going on, and not just kind of head down, look at what I do, forget about the rest of the industry and everything.
Yeah, and that's an interesting, and that's I like that. I don't even know if you call that a progressive leadership style. I think in this space it pretty much is. I had a boss who was always like, "Oh yeah, you're my replacement. You're everything else," and it's like, okay, well then when are you going to get the heck out of here so I can take over? Like, so it's like I think it's that time has come. So,
yep, I've said it before that this is something that young people want more and more. I see a lot of younger generation a little hesitant to raise their hand and volunteer and say, yeah, this is what I want. It's kind of up to leaders to let them take the steering wheel a little bit. And I've been probably more vocal about that of, I see you driving, I like the direction that we're going, but give me a chance to drive. I don't want to just sit here and wait till the ride is over and then take over. I want to test drive a little bit. I want to see if I can handle this. I want to see if I'm up to that challenge, not just when you're, said people are ready to retire or ready to be done. That's one thing as well that I think as leaders in industry need to get better at is the succession planning of when people are ready to exit. And we're going to have a mass exit in the next 5 to 10 years, right?
Right.
And how do you do that with a lot of empathy, what these leaders have built, and do it so that it's not cold turkey, right? Because some people don't want that. Some people want to have a staged exit of exit stage left here, rather than just a boot to the rear saying, see you later, thanks for what you've done. Here's a gift card to Denny's.
Yeah, right.
Right. Treating people the right way, I think, is like the hardest thing in business, it seems like.
Yeah, and there's been reading a lot of books or listening to a lot of audio tapes, and a lot of the continual feedback you get is like, where do you want this end to be? And then you almost work backwards from that. So that's kind of one of the approaches I'm taking, because eventually I'll be one of those people where it's like, dude, when are you going to get out of here? Like, leave. Here's your Denny's gift card. Have fun. So it's like, how am I positioning, the organizations that I'm a part of, so you can do that gracefully and hopefully have a better experience doing it.
Right. And it's something to plan for. And we need, as younger people, we need to see people go through that to know how to, when we get to that moment, how are we going to do it? And I don't like things behind the curtain, right? I like it out in front and explain, because I'm an open book. I like it when other people are an open book and not afraid to share the failures and successes or weird and oddity things that happen, because whether it's a success or failure is only by one person's definition. It doesn't have to be by yours or mine or anybody else's.
And that's a great point. And when someone does raise their hand, that's a vulnerable act on their side. So show some empathy if and when that does not work out. And I think that's one of the harder questions, where it's like, you want to empower people to make decisions, to learn, but how do you still, like you say, do you have one hand on the wheel, like guiding them, or are you like on like the foot brake on the other side of the car, just trying to steer, or do you just fully just let them go?
Yeah, it's a really hard thing, and I think it takes that intimate one-on-one conversation with people, because we can wait a lot until someone does raise their hand, and I think most leaders today are just waiting on someone to do that, of saying, hey, give me a chance, let me take this on, and then we'll let them run with it, versus the folks that are just waiting to be shown the way, right? That they need to be shown the way. And I think a lot of the younger generation, need to be shown the way a little bit. And that's okay, but a lot lot of communication, a lot of digging into who they are as a person and their relationship to this work we do, and what they want to get out of it. So it's interesting times.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the approaches that I've been taking recently is you have a conversation, you're both on the same page.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, what are your thoughts if we went this direction? I really like that. Okay, well, this is your idea. Let's see how this goes. Show me what that looks like.
Yep.
Because then
Yep.
they're like bought in a little bit. You're not really manifesting it. You sort of are, but at least there's some of that buy-in as opposed to the old school where it's like, this is what needs to be done.
Right.
Do it.
Right. Yep. It's a little bit of that pulling the potential out of them, right? And letting them see that they have potential. I think a lot of times we don't know what we're really good at unless someone tells us, or sees that in us. I think of great coaches, great leaders and mentors. They pulled something out of you that you almost didn't know you had. Sometimes pushing, right? And I played college sports and all that kind of stuff, and I like to be pushed, but I don't like to be pushed when I don't like to be pushed as well. So it's a hard it's a hard nut to crack. Myself, speaking of myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've heard a few of these before. I'm not a big fan of being told what like to do in a stern, but I'm open to criticism. I'm open to try different ideas because if not, then what is the point? But to me, it's on the delivery and what are we looking to accomplish?
A lot of the delivery. We talk about swim lanes or staying in your lanes and that type of thing. And I think that overall juxtaposition of words really matters, because if someone tells you or I, stay in your lane, we're going to react kind of negatively to that, and partly that's our fault. But if someone says what lane you want to be really good at or really great at, that's us answering the question rather than being told to do. And I think that holds so much more power when we can answer it rather than saying, okay, what did they just tell me to do? Or what's that? What are we trying to mutually achieve here?
Yeah, because then that wall, the defensiveness is, there's not a lot of friction. It's like, well, I guess I never really thought about that. I want to be in all the lanes. Well, you can't be in all the lanes because are you going to be a jack of all trades, master of none?
And I'm not a fan of that, right? But it's easy to try to do that, especially on the development side or business development side, because you'll get pulled in a lot of different directions. And they say, well, what about this and what about that? And the best of us say no more often than we say yes, and that's so hard to say no. But once you develop that ability to say no and say, hey, I really want to be good at this and this only, and stay away from the distractions, because that's what they can be, so much more power to that. You talk about books. I don't know if you've read Good to Great, but that's a fantastic, pick it up or else I'll send it to you, Jesse.
Okay.
A good on just a good book on knowing your space and trying to be great at it. Yeah. He talks about a hedgehog concept and just being really good at one thing versus trying to be good at the jack of all trades, if you will.
I'll have to check that one out. I mean, this might seem corny, but I think I'm on the 4th time through the 7 Habits of Extremely Successful People. Just because it's one of those ones where it's like I heard it. You hear it referenced in so many different other books that you kind of pick it back up, and you're just like, okay, well, let's go back through this. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to listen to it. Audiobooks make things so easy that you can go for, so it's like, why not?
Yeah, they stand the test of time. How do you win friends and influence people? Those will last because they have they set the standard, right? And those standards pretty much have not been proven false, at least. Start with, you want to lead people. It's not about you. you've got to lead them. You've got to know what's important to them. You want to be interested in them. You have to have a ton of empathy versus that get up and go rah rah, I want to do everything type of thing. So it's interesting knowing more and learning more about that stuff.
Empathy is I think one of the bigger words that any leader, any effective leader needs to have. I guess my question I have for you, Jacob, is, were you always this way, or did you have a mentor, or are you a product of your environment where you just wanted to be better?
So good question. I was not always this way. I would say there was a time, and not too recently too, when I've been more of like a recovering, ends with whole, it starts with a word type of thing. I had to really learn to tone down my tenacity and just intensity. I was a basketball guy, and so Michael Jordan was my guy from back in the day, and that cutthroat, win at all costs, demolish your opponent, and do by any means you can do to win the game or get by somebody. That's what I built over my college and early, kind of career into the workforce. And that it doesn't last. That just how to be a good teammate, how to be a good team. There's so many different layers into that, and personality, and knowing what other people are good at. There's so much more to it. So I've had to change my approach to nearly everything. And it starts with being humbled quite a few times, and knowing that that's a good thing. I've been through the 360 degrees, 360 degree reviews before. I don't know if you've ever been through one of those. It's kind of like
I've done like the DISC personality profile. That's probably like the furthest down the line of something like that. But
yeah, it's really getting to, all right, how are you as a leader, as a performer, as an operator, and then how do other people see you? And sometimes you don't really get the how do other people see you context, because you can have a good relationship with them and everything, but you don't know what they're taking back, back home or back to the desk. And I didn't really see how negative effect I could really have on that. And that was eye-opening, but good, because as he said, I need feedback in order to grow. If I don't have feedback, I can't grow, and I can just keep on spinning my wheels and doing the same thing and thinking that I'm great, and in actuality I'm not. So it was good, hard but good.
No, that's interesting. That's interesting. And then from like a business perspective, so okay, if I'm perceived this way by the people that report to me, how am I perceived at home? That's, as I'm listening to some of these business books, I'm like,
Ask the wife, right? How does she see you? How stubborn am I? And I know I'm a pretty stubborn person, but to really hear them and then act in accordance with, not trying to make them happy, but seeing your own faults and then lessening them. I think that's a big thing of leaders, of just knowing you have some, some deficiencies or some real weaknesses, and just not making them red lights, and just kind of calming them out. They might still be there. I'm still not that great a person sometimes, but it doesn't have to be staring people in the face.
Well, I mean, I think the first thing to anything is acceptance, right?
Yeah.
And we're typically our own worst enemies and hardest critics. But when you constantly hear, and it's like, come on, like when I have my weekly team meetings, I'm like, what else could I be doing? There's no way I am doing a perfect job here. I'm like, what else? What am I missing? How could we do something different? Please provide some feedback. And but I think that's just human nature. People don't naturally want conflict. And it's hard to get that data out of people.
That ability to be vulnerable, approachable, get people's real voice heard. Sometimes you need that other person to say it so it can come around, and that's good feedback. And it's sometimes that you need an intermediary. And I had a great one, and he taught me a lot of crucial, important, basic stuff, but did so in a way that I heard him, that I was able to listen and really take it to heart, because I could see where he was coming from and how he was trying to explain it to me. So it was awesome. It was awesome.
Well, that and the other advice I would have is if someone actually takes the time to give you feedback, like do yourself a favor and answer the feedback and do it courteously, without judgment, and actually do something about it. Because that's the worst thing you can do is ask someone for something and then it's like, whatever.
Yeah. I asked for feedback and I gave it to you, and then you did nothing with it. Why? It doesn't work.
Because the next time you do it, they're going to be like, why waste my time?
Yep. Yeah. And don't do it over email. Please burn email to the ground. I know I said I'm not a fan of trophies before, but you can burn email too. So.
And by the way, I got you a participation trophy for being with me today.
Oh, that means so much to me. So much, Jesse.
I'm sorry. I had to. I was sitting back to the conversation that we had last week. Because Jacob's a big believer. Obviously, with his personality, he believes everyone should get a trophy. So I just wanted to make sure he got one today for being our 90th person on here.
Yeah. I need something to hang my hat on. Some medal.
That's fantastic. So what advice, I guess, would you have for someone who's just getting into, this industry, and then I'll shift it to, if you're taking a management role now, what's one of the first things you can do to try to build a successful team? So I know those are two totally different tracks here, but just curious.
Yeah, the first thing, for a young person just coming into the industry, trying to learn, it's really hard to find who you're going to gravitate towards, but you almost want to just shadow somebody, and don't think of it as I need to shadow just one person. Just say, hey, I want to pick you out. And this might be harder in the times that we're still living in, because it's hybrid. And I think that's one thing that we really miss out in not working in the same place, not being a cohesive team, is that you can't really go to someone's desk and watch them perform. But I think that's, you need to see someone else perform. You need to see someone else do it. And you look at it as if you were a comic coming up in the industry, and how would you learn how to hone your game or take cues from? You would go to a comedy club and start watching someone perform their act. And you would take little things and be like, oh, I see this is how the audience or the customer reacts to this type of joke or question or things like that. So that's the biggest thing. Just find someone, shadow them, learn from them, ask them a lot of questions. Keep asking, and doesn't have to be smart questions. You can look dumb, and that's okay too, because the dumb questions are still good questions.
What was that? There was a South Park line. Sorry, acting my age here. Where they were like, remember, I think it was Stan's dad goes, remember, Stan, there are no dumb questions, just dumb people. So anyhow.
And
that's not at all where we're going with this. I'm just having some fun
here. The certain things that you hear remind you of your past and what it's absolutely. Like, and we all come from that different culture of what we grew up kind of watching or knowing or reading or anything like that. So these kids today, that they might know South Park, they might have not a clue, but that's funny. All right, so in your second question, kind of just stepping into a leadership role and you're managing a team or you're trying to get some stuff accomplished, walk slow. take your patience and don't try to do anything too fast or too sudden. Talk and do less kind of deciding of where to go or how to change things if it needs changing, because I think you really have to understand first before any changes need to be made. If you see a gap here, ask why there's a gap. Don't just say fill the gap. I think that's the biggest thing. Don't light things on fire.
No, that's completely fair. And just because it's the way it is doesn't mean it's the way it has to be. Or maybe somebody else even brought up an opinion earlier. So what were those no's, and why was it no for so long?
Right. And I mean, just a refreshing of those conversations can do a lot of good, right? All right, we've approached this before, or why aren't we doing this? What have you tried before that has failed that you would like to try again, or that you really believe in? It kind of goes back to asking really good questions, Jesse. I think we are more of a product of the questions that we ask rather than answers that we give.
And that's hard. I mean, it's one of the things that I'm trying to work on myself is letting someone finish a complete thought before I just want to just spew out everything that's on my mind. Because
sure.
It's hard.
It's part knowing the person too, because you could ask a question and they could take it and run for 15 minutes with it, and you'd feel a little remorse, right, if you interrupted them. But sometimes they're going to be okay with that. That's the dynamic of letting them go and just pulling the reins back a little bit.
No, that's completely fair. Just trying to think out loud here. I think we covered a lot. What were your thoughts on? So you were at the first EFC event that we did in June of last year, and then thank you for being on the panel last week. What are your thoughts on that format? What we're looking to accomplish? Feedback?
So the first one and the whole concept, I love the intimacy of it, because I think I'm involved in ELFA and then NEFA to a certain extent, and NEFA is kind of the younger brother to ELFA. I don't know if you've been to you've been to NEFA before, right? It's kind of like a college party versus ELFA is kind of like a corporate boardroom party type of thing. So it's cool the differences, and this is kind of real conversations with 35, 40 people. It's one day. It's an easy get to because you're going all across the country and everything. But it's a little less scary and more inviting and whatnot. I think watching Laverne talk and kind of share her story the first time was incredible. Certain things you didn't know or you're not exposed to is really it just kind of awestruck, and just how good of a delivery and a person she was. That's just cool to see. I think that's one thing these conferences really allow is they expose you to different things and they allow you to share experiences, and that's pretty critical for people coming up and working their way through the industry or out of the industry. So I like that. The second one, really good with Ben Utek showing up and everything. A little different, I would say, reminding me of the last one. So I like change and I like shaking things up a little bit. So I like the less presenting and more interactive type of stuff. I don't think we're that good as an industry in that context, right?
Yeah, no, we got the we had 22 survey results come back, which is fantastic out of 58 people. So that's a good return, which is great. And I want to say a half dozen people said they wanted activity. So, where it's like, okay, and then it's like, how do we build these in? So we're looking at that. We had our advisory council meeting earlier this week. it's like, how do we incorporate an activity into what we're doing and try to still make sure there's networking and everything else. So and you came up to me after the event, and like what you were saying was spot on, because there are other people too where they were like, look, it's like, can we have it where this is a conversation and then you open it up for the audience to participate more? And that's what the data is telling us. So just look at you, man. You're the oracle on how to make things improving. So
I'm a little bit of a bellwether, Jesse. Trust me, I tell a lot of people, I don't look smart. Might be.
I'm not going there, man.
Right.
No.
So I think that the like the conversation part of it, or just you throw people in a few different groups, round table, pick an issue that we're talking about or that we'd like to solve. It's how do you solve pricing in a chaotic world today, and where it's going. How do you make sure that your value, as a service provider, as a broker, as a lessor, as a finance company, how do you communicate that well, and talk about like real life scenarios, and have put people on the spot a little bit. That engagement is it's hard, is really, really hard.
Nope, that's completely fair. And I guess my last question, and I'll let you go. A little fun fact about yourself. I'm not gonna let you get out of that one. So,
sure.
Besides that, you're a recovering a-hole. What else might people not know about you? And those are words that you use. Just if people are just watching the backside of it. Okay. That's not me judging you.
Nope. I know you're not a judger at all by any means, and I'm really to the point of recovered. So I feel like the 10 steps, and I'm pretty good.
What's amazing though is, like, as I said that phrase, like Brooke is over here working at the table, and she turned around and like, did you really just say that? She didn't hear it from before because she can't hear it.
Oh, that's funny. It happens. Right? I don't lie. Big believer. So I didn't talk about my family much. So I have 4 kids. So this is not a fun fact. You just this stuff for you and I, basically. So 2 older daughters, and then 2 younger boys. I have a wife. We've been married for 16 years. It'll be 17. She's actually, I know your wife does a kind of side job. So my wife does the side job of on Instagram. So if you like the back room here, she's at Angela Fahl Interiors. She's good. She is so much of a better person than I am. That I'm fortunate to live in the same house that she has built for us. The other side of things, like I'm a big routine fan, so I love routine. I get up practically every morning between 5 and 5:30, and I work out, and I write every day. If it's cold in winter, I do a little bit of cold therapy too. So that's really fun to go out in the bone chilling Minnesota winters and just feel the pain, if you will. So a few fun facts, if you will.
Interesting. Doug Houlihan from ClickLease. I don't know if you've met him at a NIFA event. He does the cold therapy.
Oh, it's great. Go to the extremes. If I can go to the extremes, then I don't need to be such a you know what.
All right, man. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Jacob. Trying to think of when our paths will cross again. Probably was it Nashville? Are you doing any other conferences in the fall?
When's the ELFA? That's in October, right?
Yeah, first week in October. Yeah, you'll probably be there, and then you have Nashville for NIFA shortly thereafter.
And then are you doing another Huntington Beach equipment finance pairs. So I might try to go to that because
Oh,
I know where you're
okay.
going, and they're good folks over there.
Okay. Well,
Cool.
excellent, man. Well, appreciate your time today, and look forward to seeing you here in
Absolutely.
the near future. Thank you.
Yeah. Good talking to you. Yep. See you, Jesse.
Likewise.
Bye.